I've said many times that I feel at some point all men will end up on testosterone. It's tough to win the war against the lifestyle of society, and you can do so many of all the right things and still have those symptoms.
Are you ready to become the dad you were meant to be? Good, because this is the Epic Dad Legacy Podcast, where imperfect actions are better than perfect ideas, promises kept are more important than promises made, and nothing happens unless you make it happen. My name is Drew, father of three, and founder of the Epic Dad Company. My mission is to help dads up their game and become the husbands, fathers, and men they are called to be. We need epic dads now more than ever. And it is your responsibility and obligation to become the best father you can be and show your kids what is possible. Listen in for weekly tips, strategies, and actions you can take to go from average dad to epic dad. Thanks for listening. Now let's start the episode. Allie Gilbert, welcome to the Epic Dad Legacy Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Your background looks way better than mine, by the way.
Yeah, you need some hot pink in your life.
I know. Well, I like, you can't see it. Like, it looks okay, but like, I'm in my unfinished basement and I just have I did one wall behind me, so it looks decent, you know? But yeah, the lighting's terrible. And I have one of those little light things that I can turn on, but then it just looks terrible because the lighting's terrible. So yeah, I got to up my game.
Honestly, I would say it's like this is a guest room and only this corner has the desk, the lights, but it's a hot mess under here. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you put a good show on then if it's a hot mess. It looks very organized. Well, Allie, I first connected with you at the BK Live event. I think it was in August or September. I don't remember.
Yeah.
September. Yeah. You were one of the speakers there and really loved your chat. I think it's kind of what I want to focus on today is men's health and really testosterone levels. I think just like your approach to it, like one, you don't see many women in men's health, you know, so that kind of piqued my interest. And then just really like your engagement on the stage and connecting with the audience and using stories, using humor was like, hey, you have a really good approach to it. So yeah, was really looking forward to connecting with you further and having a good discussion.
Don't forget the props that I used on.
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention that, but since you bring it up.
Oh, I am like an open book. The reason I did that is because people talk about it.
Yeah.
So for those who were not there, because they're probably like, what is she talking about? Whenever you speak on stage, you have something called an opener. And usually people open with a joke or a statistic or some sort of dramatic story. And knowing the audience that was at BK Live, I was like, all right, everyone's going to be serious and they're going to be ready to be motivated and all that stuff. And I'm going to come on stage and totally shock them. So I pretended that I had told this story of flying to Arizona and I pretended that my bag got pulled off the ramp from TSA and they found a dildo in it. And I pulled the dildo out of my bag. Very large.
Yeah, rather large.
So just to break the ice, because I think I was one of the first speakers, like I went third or something. And then I went to the guy in the front row and I was like, can you hold this for me? And then he went like this. I was like, why would you reach out to catch that? You don't know where it's been. So anyway, my husband actually helped me think of that because he and I are polar opposites when it comes to personality. So the fact that he was like, oh yeah, I should definitely bring that. And I did bring it on a carry-on, but it didn't get pulled to the side. I was kind of disappointed, actually.
Yeah. Funny TSA stories that I travel quite a bit for work as well. And like, I always bring pre-workout and protein, like everywhere I go, you know, it's like a staple. And I was traveling to LA for work and I met with Steve Eckert out there, who's one of the talkers or the speakers out there. And he's a big fan of our supplement brand. And so I was like, hey, cool, let me just bring you out, some stuff. And so I brought a bottle of pre-workout and a bottle of our protein in carry-on. And I literally got pulled off. Obviously got pulled off the belt, which is fine. That happens like every time. I'm like, whatever. And they're like, is it protein? I'm like, yeah. But this time they pulled it off and I guess they swiped it and it like popped hot for like explosive material. And I was like, are you kidding me? And so they literally I had to stand there for like 30 minutes. They brought a bomb tech and they like opened Steve's protein and like had to test it. And I was like, well, at least you guys are giving me a good story, you know?
I've had that actually happen to me with stevia.
Yeah.
Small things. But yeah, but when I came back from my men's health event in November from Phoenix, I had 75 cock rings in my bag left over because we had a sex toy company sponsor and they gave out cock rings. So I was like, this should be funny. And they didn't. I was really upset. I was like, this could have been so entertaining and provided for a great story. So now I'll just have to make another one up.
Well, your chat out there was about men's health. And like I said, you don't see many women in the men's health industry and coaching men specifically. So I'd love to know, how did you even get started in that? What kind of drove the interest and the passion there?
So I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut, which is a very affluent, wealthy town. I did not grow up affluent and wealthy with butlers and all that stuff. But when I returned from college, I had a degree in exercise science. And I was like, yeah, I want to work with athletes, just like everybody who
Yeah.
graduates with that degree. And you realize that you can't make a living really doing that unless you're straight to the pro level. And I was working in a gym in Greenwich, and I happened to get a lot of guys as clients that played golf. And I was like, I know nothing about golf. I never played. I played soccer in college. And I was like, well, these guys seem like really type A, driven, like want to work hard. I got along well with them. So I was like, I'm going to learn everything about golf. And there was a golf fitness certification. So I went all in on that. I became like the go to golf fitness person. And that was my thing. Like, that's who I was known
Mhm.
for, all that stuff for years. And because it brought me a predominantly male clientele, a lot of the discussion turned from hitting the ball farther to nutrition, to energy, to hormones. And I was like, nobody talks about this with
Mhm.
these guys
Mhm.
because guys don't talk about it like the way that we do. We're very social as women and we talk about like hormones and stuff. And guys are not like, yeah, couldn't get it up, bro. Like, you're not talking about that in your foursome for golf. So I found that very interesting. And I was like, this is an interesting niche to be in because I am a woman who's handling this. And I think being a female, easy to talk to, a lot of these guys felt comfortable
Mhm.
talking about it with me.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of how I fell into it. Cause then I was like, I have to learn everything about men's health. And I dove into that and I attended medical conferences. I spoke at medical conferences, just really wanted to network with a ton of physicians who were handling hormone optimization for guys and learning about men's physiology. So here we are, fast forward now, that's been my thing for so long. And I really enjoy it. I really love it. And I just wrote a post on this because I get asked this all the time because people are like, how the hell did you land in men's health?
Yeah.
And that's really where it, was born from, was golf fitness. And so I kind of still keep one foot in that world, but now I own a online coaching business that is predominantly marketed to men. We focus on men's health. We integrate hormones, nutrition,
Yeah.
fitness all together so that guys don't have to go piecemealing it all together. Because a lot of men do that where they hear this from this doctor and then this
Mhm.
from their coach and then this training program and this nutrition. And then they're trying to make it all work
Mm.
and it doesn't. So it's kind of like one stop, we're done, one stop, and we can handle
Yeah.
everything. So
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, to your point, right? Like when you have a work colleague for like 10 years, right? And they could be going through like a world of shit, right? And they're just like, yeah, I'm good. Right. Like, yeah, men aren't going to talk about it. So yeah, that's interesting that, feel more comfortable, speaking that type of thing to a woman, which totally makes sense. I'm interested too on kind of the hormone side. Like obviously, we want to be in shape and like we can do workout programs, all that kind of stuff. And like that's one component of it. I feel like the component that gets missed most often is like from a hormone perspective. And like I've only recently started doing my blood work like the past 3 years. And just personal story, this was kind of during, I don't remember, I guess it was 21 when I got my first blood round done. I was honestly just feeling like shit. Like, I think we all kind of went through a big transition with COVID and like being a little bit more, remote than we were used to. And I just kind of put those symptoms towards like that's what it was like, okay, I had COVID a couple of times, I've heard about long COVID, like whatever, I'm just kind of like, yeah, just feeling and I was like, well, I'm just gonna go get blood work. I've heard about testosterone, just want to like see where I'm at. I ran it and I wasn't surprised, but I kind of was, right? Like I figured, hey, I'm this athlete, like I work out literally like almost every day, like I'm this type A personality. And then I get my levels back and I'm at like 290. I'm like, what the heck, man? That started like a big transition to me of like, how do I raise this? Because like that's the funk that I'm in. It has nothing to do with anything else. The funk is I'm not producing enough testosterone, which is the fuel for me to want to, you know, go after goals, right? To stay motivated, to stay disciplined, like to have that. And that was just a big shift for me, a big eye opener for me. And since then, I ran my blood work last year, or I guess this year I did, and I'm at like 590, which is still lower than I'd like to be, I think. All types of changes in my lifestyle, from my eating habits to my sleep habits to my wake up routine to making sure that I'm fulfilling myself with like meditation and breath work and kind of like those high testosterone habits, right? Like the right natural habits to increase it. But yeah, it seems like a lot of guys, are maybe going through something like that and they just don't know why. Like, is that the
How
reason?
and how old are you?
I am 38.
Yeah. So that's there's a lot of guys that are like, "Oh, am I too young?" And because we're used to, like, I'm 43, so like my dad and grandfather's generation, no one had low T like until they're 80.
Hmm.
And now we see it in guys in their 20s. And I'm not shocked when I see somebody in their 20s and their testosterone is like 200 or less. It's how we've evolved as a society. And, you know, a lot of guys just don't get tested because they either are dismissed. Like, I've heard the most ridiculous shit. I mean, can I curse? Is cursing okay?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, drop it
Um,
if you want.
like, where guys have been told, "Oh, you have a beard, you don't need your testosterone checked," and like, "You've got kids, you don't need it checked," or "You're in shape, you don't need it checked." Like, all
Hmm.
these ludicrous reasons from general practitioners, and that is why seeking out hormone panels or getting testing or any type of management of hormone optimization from a GP is not the ideal route, because we do need GPs for like routine physicals and, a Z pack or something if someone gets a cold, but they're not properly trained in more proactive health measures, which is hormone optimization,
Hmm.
because, guys are just showing up lower and lower. And that's the reason they've changed the range of testosterone on lab work twice in the last couple decades, because guys are coming in so low that,
Yeah, it's like the new normal. You
yeah,
know.
and the insurance companies want men to qualify for testosterone. So if you go through a GP through insurance, they're like, "Cool, you have to be under 300 twice in a row in order to qualify." Anybody that low is going to feel miserable. What if you're 301? That doesn't count. 300 is awful for any man. Symptom resolution is going to be king. It's not going to be so much what is on the piece of paper.
Mhm.
But as you said, a lot of guys have low testosterone and don't know they do, because they just associate it either with sexual function or
Yeah.
with muscles. And that's
Mhm.
it.
Yeah. The 2 labs that I've done have just been through a GP. It hasn't been through, like, a specialized kind of, like, hormone person or facility. I was shocked at the hesitation and resistance toward that. It wasn't on the first blood panel. I was like, "Okay, I'll just get my blood done." The assumption was like, "Yeah, they're gonna check everything. Testosterone's gonna be on there." And, like, that wasn't on there. I was like, "Hey, the whole reason I did this was I wanna have my testosterone checked." And they were like, "Well, why do you wanna do that?" And I'm like, "'Cause I feel like shit." Right? It was like they were, like,
Oh,
pushing back on it, and so I had
yeah.
to go pay, like, another $100 to get, like, a specialized test done for T, and then it happened again, the next time I did it. It was like I specifically asked for testosterone because I knew that going in. I was like, "Hey, I want you guys to check for testosterone." They're like, "Okay, got it." And then the panel came back, it didn't have T on there. I was like, "What are we doing?" You know? And so, yeah, like, I don't know if it's like you were saying, they're just not specialized in it, or, like, why is there such resistance to that idea?
Uh, because they have to do something about it, and they're not well trained in that. So, if you like, I'm not going to tell people go lie to your doctor, but first step is just don't go through GP, don't go through insurance.
Yeah.
However, for men who have tried that route, you really have to go in there and be like, "I can't get an erection. I feel like shit. I'm very lethargic. I've got a ton of brain fog." You have to literally name every single symptom, because legally, when you do that, then the doctor has to do something about it. But a
Mhm.
lot of guys, because of pride, will not admit to a lot of
Yeah.
those things. Whether they struggle with erectile dysfunction or not, they're still not going to say that.
Mhm.
So if they're not alluding to that being an issue, then there really is no reason for the doctor to test for that.
Okay.
So, and then for them to do something about it, they're not up to the evolved literature on it. A lot of them still think that it causes prostate cancer, heart attacks, all these bad things.
Yeah.
And it's so highly stigmatized that it's like this taboo subject, which is so bizarre because like women go through menopause and they go on hormone replacement, no problem. But if a guy starts to decline in testosterone, then everyone loses their mind.
Yeah, and I'm wanted to ask too, like you said they've changed the kind of normal range over the past couple of decades, which obviously indicates that it's like trending downwards. Why is that? Like, is it societal factors? Is it like what we're eating nutrition wise? Like, what's your thought around, yeah, general consensus of why we're seeing that decline?
It's all the above. The biggest thing is the sedentary lifestyle, obesity, that is instantly going to drive a man's testosterone down. Because if you have a lot of extra body fat is the most inflammatory tissue that there is. So when the body's inflamed, it's not going to be like, oh, yeah, we feel great. Let's go procreate. Let's drive testosterone levels up. Like, that's not how your body works. So carrying all that extra fat around is not going to make you the most optimal man. There is a chemical factor to it with the use of phthalates, parabens, and all these
Mhm.
things called xenoestrogens that are disruptive of your natural hormone production. So that basically it exists in your body, tricking it to think that you're producing certain hormones, but it also influences the type of hormones the body produces. And this is really wild and it seems like super far out, but there's a doctor by the name of Shanna Swan, and she did a study in 2017 that predicted men to be infertile by the year 2048. And everyone was like, what in the hell is going on? Because sperm production has decreased about 60% in the last
Holy cow!
decades. So her research, and she actually went on Rogan, I think a couple of years ago. Her research shows that women who are pregnant with a boy can influence his sperm production while she's pregnant with him based off the exposure to certain chemical, like environmental toxins and stuff. It's like reality because, if you look around these days, like the makeup of younger men is different from when I was growing up, when our dads were growing up. They don't look as masculine, and that's because they're being born more feminized because of the exposure to less testosterone in the womb. So it's a big part of it.
That is insane.
It's wild. She wrote a book called Countdown. Like anyone, download it or whatever if you don't believe me, but you can even just Google that, like sperm production decreased at 60%. Her work will come up.
Yeah,
And it's pretty scary, but
yeah, and like I've heard about like phthalates are like pretty much in everything. So like, how do we? I mean, I want to go definitely into a deep dive on it, but the question is really like naturally, how do we avoid those, right? Like if they're kind of all around us, how do we mitigate those risks?
you can't really avoid it. If you think about like when you're born, you're put on a plastic tube, like there's no control over that. But I have like big rocks thing for guys to address because it can get extremely overwhelming and
Yeah.
people literally you'd have to like isolate yourself in the middle of nowhere with no Wi-Fi, nothing like at all. If men are using plastic to microwave food and store food, switching to glass or stainless steel is a great move. If you use products in the shower or on your face, I would get products that don't contain these chemicals. And there's a lot of brands out there that have them.
Mhm.
One of my clients, his company, Johnny Slicks, he's a
Yeah.
veteran, it's veteran owned. Yeah. They make fantastic products. It's how I make my faux hawk with clay pomade, but they have body wash, they've got beard oil, they've got like hair products. None of them have any of
Nice.
the hormone disrupting chemicals in them.
Okay.
So those types of products, like if you're putting it on your body every day, then definitely switch those out. And then drinking out of a stainless steel water bottle with bottled water from glass is really going to be like the big rocks because that's really the things that we can control.
Yeah.
No, we can't control a whole lot of other
Damn,
things.
I'm the worst offender on the water bottles. I literally just chugged a water bottle from the fridge on the way down here. Just get the 24 pack from Kroger or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, wow. All right, some stuff I got to think about.
Yeah. And it's like that's where it can be overwhelming. And like I remember I used to put in my talks how, like, they just banned red 3, but like red number 40, which is a red food dye, can have like, a suppression of testosterone. But like, it's such a far away thing that we have to worry about. Like, if you're not training, sleeping, eating, like all those things, the last thing you need to worry about is like a food dye, you know?
Yeah. Like you said, kind of the big rocks. Like when we talk to guys and they're like, man, I can't lose my dad bod or whatever. And like, I just can't seem to get in shape. It's like, all right, we go to like a couple of different areas. And it's like, all right, cool. Well, first of all, like, how is your fitness, right? Like, are you actively working out? Are you doing cardio? Like all this stuff, right? Like the fitness protocol. The second thing we go to is nutrition, right? Like, what are you actually putting in your body? And get that dialed in. And the third thing we go to is sleep, right? And like those three things, like we can pretty much get you really good results, But for testosterone and low T, like what would you say are some of those big rocks like that they kind of naturally like outside of us shutting ourselves in a bubble, like we still got to live normal life. Like how can we reduce it?
Alcohol is number one. The term like alcoholism has a subterm, which is more social alcoholism. Guys will say, well, I only drink on the weekend or only have like one drink a night or 3 to 5 during like a weekend night. That's still an amount that can have an effect on pretty much everything in your body. It messes with your liver, it messes with the production of testosterone, it can suppress fat burning. It is a toxic thing. Like
Mhm.
when you drink alcohol, and most of the time people are eating food with it. So your body sees it as like, okay, there's toxic a substance coming in. It's really, really quick energy for me. So I have to metabolize this right away. And anything that you eat, it's like, we're going to put over here, we're going to store you because we don't need to use you just yet.
Mhm.
So we're going to metabolize the alcohol first. So the preferential metabolization of alcohol with everything else that you consume puts fat burning on the back burner. So that would be like the number one, is to have like a come to Jesus talk. You're drinking a lot every week.
Yeah.
If we have that handled, sleep definitely is a priority. And it's like the most boring thing to talk about. Oh my gosh. Because it's like we've tried to make sleep sexy by using sleep trackers and mattresses and all that stuff. And it's not so much like let's make sleep exciting, but it's more, what are you doing before bed? Where's your mindset? Like, are you thinking about work? Are you staring at the ceiling? Do you have a hard time calming down? Are
Mhm.
you using alcohol to cope to try to get to sleep? There's a lot that goes into it. But most parents, as you know, when you have kids, getting up early usually is the only time of the day that you're going to be able to get training done,
100%.
and
Mhm.
work done. So all our dads realize that, and the new ones are like, okay, yeah, I have to shift my schedule. So you have to go to bed early. Nothing really happens past like 8 p.m. besides TV shows or anything like that, unless you have a unique work schedule. And I'll catch myself on my laptop past 8 p.m. or whatever. But I'm like, when my husband's gone, I'm like, what do I actually do between 8 and 10 p.m.? Just go to bed.
Yeah. I mean, sleep to me is my biggest challenge, like 100%. I eat super clean, but the big rock for me is sleep. On average, I probably get 5.5 hours of sleep a night.
Well,
And everybody tells me that, like, you need to get better sleep, you need to get better sleep. And I'm like, well, there's just no freaking time, man. Like, I'm trying to grow a business, and like, the only time I can work out, right, is, at like 5 a.m., right? Like 4 or 5 a.m. And to me, it's like I look at it like a phase in life of like, okay, I'm making a sacrifice right now to get to where I want to go later. This is not, it's not sustainable in the very long term. Um, but I know it's having an impact for sure. I don't see how people get freaking 9 hours, 8 or 9 hours sleep. I'm just like, there's no
yeah.
way.
And it doesn't have to be 9. Like, I
Yeah.
would say, like, functioning on 6 is a realistic thing. So,
Mhm.
I'm not one of the fitness purists that's like, you have to eat everything organic that went through red light therapy and shipped from the local farm, and 9 hours of sleep, meditating before bed, no blue light, like, nothing, like, all those are good things, but I'm also very much a realist. Like, I worked with guys on Wall Street who were like, "That's cool. I have to catch a 5 a.m. train,
Yeah.
and I'm on the phone with China at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
So what gives?" So you have to really meet people where they're at. But if they're knowingly not doing anything productive, It's just getting yourself into bed and then
Mhm.
reading a book, which usually puts a lot of people to sleep.
Yeah.
Just starting the process of calming down so your body knows, okay, time to go to bed, and then if you're not used to waking up early, like obviously the first week is going to suck and you're going to struggle to get to bed early enough to feel okay the next morning, but then it starts to become habitual where,
Mhm.
all right, now you're getting tired at 8, 9 p.m. It's a little bit easier to get up at 4 or 5 o'clock.
Yeah. And I think one big shift for me too, Ali, like I'm very entrepreneurial and like I said, it's kind of type A driven. And I'm a big reader as well. And so I would always read professional development books to go to bed. And I've made a shift within the last 4 months or so that's been a game changer. And that is to switch to fiction before bed.
Yeah.
I can thank my wife for that. She is into these like fantasy romance, like smut books pretty much. And she got me hooked on them too. So I'm reading those now. That's been a game changer because it kind of shuts my mind down a little bit. It's like if I read a professional development book or business book, I'm going to bed thinking about like, all right, I got to get stuff done. And so just that simple shift to fiction has helped me get to bed faster and have deeper sleep, I think.
Yeah, no, it definitely works. Any business related books, I use Audible. I'll listen to those during the day because,
Mhm.
of course, you're just thinking about everything you want to implement like ASAP. You don't want to do that at bed.
Okay, so we get our sleep dialed in. What's kind of the next thing?
When it comes to nutrition, everybody's different, but pretty much every guy that comes to us, we attract a lot of guys that undereat and mainly protein because a lot of people are coming from the low carb era
Mhm.
where carbs are really low, fat is astronomically high, and protein is like, eh. And they're trying to do all the things. There is a detriment to training multiple days a week, doing jujitsu on top of that, trying to be active, but then you're not eating enough to support that because you want to drop love handles and belly fat, which I totally respect and understand. But sometimes you have to shift calories around. And then there's those who are just sporadic in the gym and like workouts come when they feel they have the time. They don't put it in their schedule. They don't make it a priority. And then they get overwhelmed by all the information out there and they feel that they have to do everything at once. So if someone's starting like from scratch, like they haven't gotten in the gym in years, go for like a 15-minute walk and then just build on to that 'cause it'll get you out, it'll
Mhm.
get you moving. I bought, like, one of those walking pad things for
Yeah, I've got one right here.
podcasts.
I'm typically walking while I'm working.
Yeah, and I was like, "I don't ever wanna have to do that," but I did, and it helps because it's like there's only so many times I can walk my dog before he's
Yeah.
like, "What are we doing?" And then it eats into time for other things, but if guys have to take calls during the day that is just on the phone, I'm like, "Just walk around, pace,
Mhm.
while you're on the phone, like, find ways to get that activity in." And then the better you start feeling, then the more motivated you'll feel to structure your day a little bit differently. But usually, re- coming into change is hard and a lot of people resist it. But just like you said, you've made shifts. When they make these shifts and then the positive things happen due to those shifts, then they realize the importance because it bleeds into everything. It's not just what happens physically and mentally. Now you're actually amplifying how you maybe used to feel. Like now you're more confident. Now you look the part. Now you can actually make more money because you can make better decisions because you
Mhm.
can show up as the man that you know you can be
Mhm.
that maybe you lost for a few years or you don't know why you haven't felt that way in a while.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of positive changes you can make that you can stay consistent with. Like, we talk to guys all the time that are looking to get into shape, and we kind of ask them, "Hey, what have you tried?" and all that stuff. And we get a lot of same thing, type A personalities, and they're like, "Well, I try to go to the gym for like 2 hours a day and all that stuff." It's just not sustainable for a dad with young children and a job and is trying to provide and also be present for his wife. It's like that's just not going to work, man. Like, you have to shift your mindset around like progress over perfection and like stay in momentum because what we see a lot of guys do is, hey, I'm gonna go super hard in the paint. I'm gonna set this goal, and I go to the gym 7 days in a row, and then I just crash and just burn out. And it's like, all right, let's back up a little bit. Like, let's set sustainable, realistic tasks and processes throughout the day that you can hit. And it's weird to think that way, right? Because you're so used to just like going after it. But what we find is, with things that are consistent is like we start to build that momentum and it may not feel like you're stacking very many wins. And it feels very different from I'm going to set a goal, I'm going to go after it super hard, because in the beginning you're super motivated, and it might not feel as motivating, but what you see is like, okay, cool, I'm now at week 3 and I've been consistent, and like I've just been stacking these little wins and little wins and little wins day after day, and then you get an even greater feeling, right? Because you've shown that you're consistent in it. Hey guys, interrupting the show for 1 minute to ask you a question. If the future you 40 years from now looked at you right now, looked at the way you're showing up, looked at the energy you're bringing to your family, looked at the way you are leading, looked at your physical shape, looked at the habits, routines, and disciplines you have, looked at your vices, would he be proud? Or would he be shaking you violently, trying to get you to wake up and take control of your life? If you feel stuck in a rut, can't get motivated, I understand. I've been there. That is why I created the Epic Dad Fit program. Our goal inside the Fit program is to radically change your life as a father in just 90 days by helping you develop an unshakable foundation of discipline and habits, get you into the best shape of your life, and provide massive community and accountability to ensure you are successful. If you're ready to radically change your life as a father in just 90 days, hit the link in the show notes and apply today. All right, back to the show.
Yeah. And they do add up. I mean, when I was in my 20s and a coach, I would tell people you got to eat 6 times a day every 3 hours. It's just like so cringe to look back on. But I held unrealistic standards because I was 23 years old. And I was like, what do you mean you don't have time? I didn't understand what that meant. And now, obviously, way more mature, but a lot of experience where if clients have kids' lacrosse tournaments on the weekends and they've been told by their previous coach that they have to bring 6 Tupperwares to the lacrosse tournament.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody wants to do that. And so I'm like, go to the gas station, get a protein shake. Like,
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck. Like, make it easy.
Yeah.
You
That's
know?
what it is. Like, just make the best decision that you can
Yeah.
in it, right? Like, we literally just put together like a new lead magnet download, and it's called the Emergency Break Glass Fast Food Guide, right? Because, like, I mean, just face it, like, you're gonna go to freaking McDonald's, like, as a dad, like, you're going to with small kids, you know? It's like the one fucking thing my kids will eat is like their nuggets.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, well, cool. I can either like 3 options. One is I can be like, cool, I'm just not eating with the family, right? Which you can do. That's fine, right? It's a little bit
Yeah.
extreme. 2 is you can just be like, fuck it, I'll just get a double quarter pounder because whatever. Or 3 is like you just make the best decision with where you're at, right? So like I'm at McDonald's. Believe it or not, like you can get a freaking, grilled chicken sandwich and, take the bread off and like be just fine, right? So like make the best decision.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not that difficult if you are prepared with a plan. But we have a lot of guys that travel.
Mhm.
So we were talking about Atlanta airport because I'm there all the time. My routine, get off the plane, go to the vending machine to get a core power before I go to the
Yep.
Delta
Those are
Lounge
awesome.
because it's very easy.
Mm.
Delta Lounge is like so hit or miss. The only thing I like there are the brownies. They're really good. And they know me there. Like, I kind of stand out. And so they've brought me like a plate of brownies. I'd be like, hey, Allie, these are in the back. We know you love them. And I'm like, man, but hey, a chocolate milk core power with a brownie. Sometimes they'll have like a chicken dish without too much business on it. But I'm not just eating it because it's there. Like a lot of the times people feel trapped. Like, I was in an airport, that was the only thing. If that's the only thing, then it's actually better off you just don't eat at all. And then maybe bring some protein powder with you
Mhm.
next time and then mix it up. Or
Yep.
the vending machines have like hidden protein shakes. Like it's,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
you
that's
can
what
also
that's like my
utilize.
go-to in the airport is,
Yeah.
like the core power, 42 grams of protein and 1 shot. And I forget what airport I was in. I was traveling here recently. I was there super early in the morning. I had a late night the night prior, and it was just like such an obvious choice. It was just funny to see. It's like there was a McDonald's right here, and there was maybe 50 people in line, and then there was a vending machine that had a core power right there. And I was like, this sums it up right here. Nobody's in line. And I was just like, there we go.
It's totally like, you have to reframe your mind. And I really I did a podcast with Mike Dolce last night, who was one of my Silverback speakers. And he was like, you're always going to be that outlier if you're the only fit person in that group. And you have to get comfortable with that because the mindset has to be, I am not like you. And it's not more of an elitist thing, but it's more so you can still go out to dinner with everybody, but you could also modify the menu, which people like don't realize that you can do. I'm like, if you go to a steakhouse, you can ask for like the asparagus to have a touch of oil, not drowned in oil. And you
Mhm.
can ask for it steamed. You can ask for extra vegetables or white rice without butter in it, stuff like that. You have to do that when you go out, but you can always make good choices. You can go to a pizza place that has salad and grilled chicken. It exists in the restaurant.
Mhm.
They have
Yeah.
it. Like, you just have to ask for it. And that's how you have to kind of reframe your mind as like, there's a reason why you look the way you do, and those people don't look the way they do. Because it is very apparent, like in an airport, you don't see a lot of fit people, and there's a reason for that. So if you're trying to get to that point, you have to start living and acting like that.
Mhm.
And that's how fit people act and live. Like
Yeah.
I don't go to all these airport restaurants. Like that doesn't do me any good. Of course, I want to attack like Dunkin' Donuts. I love Dunkin' Donuts. I love donuts, but I'm not going to just get them because they're there.
Mhm.
So then you can utilize Uber Eats, Instacart, like all those things to where it's at your hotel when you arrive. You can put it in your fridge. There's absolutely zero excuse that you can't eat well on the road.
Yeah.
You and I both know that there's like hacks, throughout the day. So if you're in business meetings or whatever and you have to go to a dinner, protein shakes or very, very low carb, low fat throughout the day so that those calories can be managed and budgeted for the
Mhm.
dinner at the end of the night because you don't know how much fat is going to be used in food and stuff like that.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that term budget too. That's like a great way to think about it. Like what we like to say is, control what you can control,
Yep.
right? And so what we don't want dads to do is like to show up to a family dinner and like they have a plate of like boiled chicken and broccoli and like their family, is like eating this great meal. Like that's not the goal,
No.
right? And so like let's control what we control. And like as a dad, most of the time you're eating breakfast by yourself, right? So you can 100% control that. Like you're eating lunch at work by yourself and then you're eating snacks throughout the day by yourself. So like let's control that, and that way you can budget for you to sit down and have some flexibility at dinner with your family. And like maybe it's spaghetti night and you have zucchini noodles or whatever instead, right?
Mhm.
And like you don't have to have this completely different meal, but there's just little things you can do that create that flexibility.
100%. We've all heard every excuse, so we have a solution for it.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you like we can still take all these steps, right? Like we can try to get better sleep. We can make sure we're active, cut down on body fat, make sure our nutrition's dialed in, and like we're going to see positive changes. I'm confident of that, like in our T levels. At what point does it make sense to say, hey, maybe I need to do something on top of that, and think about like hormone replacement therapy?
So I've said on stage and I've said on social media many times that I feel at some point all men will end up on testosterone, more to normalize that concept because it's still so highly stigmatized. But it, it's tough to win the war against the lifestyle of society. And you can do so many of all the right things and still have those symptoms. We'll get guys like, and it's not like you come into our program where like you have to go on testosterone. Of course, you should push it off as long as possible, make the positive changes in your life. So we've had guys for a year, 2 years who take those 2 years to make those changes and nothing really changes in their labs and they still have those symptoms. And then it's a discussion of, is it maybe the right time because they just don't have the energy. They've got massive brain fog, low motivation just for anything, very like apathetic attitude, stuff like that. And then sometimes you can see in labs because it's not just the total testosterone number that
Mhm.
matters. There's a lot of other things because testosterone has a very positive effect on cholesterol numbers, blood sugar markers. So it could actually help a lot of that, thyroid included. A lot of guys have suboptimal thyroid function. So it can amplify other markers, but you also get your LH and FSH tested, which are follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, which basically tells your balls, hey, yo, produce testosterone. So when the balls are tapped out, those numbers will be high on labs. So that is a sign that your natural production, like we're done. We're done. Balls are done. The only route to go now for optimal testosterone levels is to go replacement dosage. So therapeutically. And that's why just getting your testosterone alone is not really reflective of everything else going on in your life, because your blood work is a snapshot in time, but it also shows a reflection of your nutrition, of your lifestyle, of the stress in your life, all those things. So taking that into consideration to make the decision of going on something that might actually help things in your labs that are not trending so well is part of the decision. A lot of guys have a hard time wrapping their head around the fact that it's a for life medication.
Mhm.
And I try to talk them through that, because I tell them, like, you brush your teeth every day because that's routine. You're taking vitamins every day. This is no different, because this is something that's going to help your quality of life. And we've never had a client who has gone on testosterone and been like, I feel so good, I just don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm very much like, and this is a fairly recent shift for me, like since like COVID basically like shattered my worldview on like, trust in institutions. Is fairly like a naturalist, right? Like, hey, like let's do this the natural way. Like even our supplement brand, like it's 100% natural ingredients and things like that. And so I've always had a little bit of hesitation about like, hey, something that's exogenous that I'm gonna put in my body that's not kind of naturally occurring. So I'd love to know like what does the literature say about it? Like how long has this been studied and things like that? Because at least to me, my knowledge of it is fairly recent. So like, have we been doing this for 60 years and I just don't know it? Like when did this come about?
I don't know when testosterone replacement was born. It was forever ago. I think 20s or 30s or something like that. Basically, the old literature is where all the scary stuff comes from, with prostate cancer, heart attacks, all
Okay.
that stuff. A lot of the new literature refutes all of that and shows that having suboptimal testosterone levels can actually put you at a greater risk of heart disease, all cause mortality, all that stuff. And then with prostate cancer, like, many doctors will tell patients like it causes cancer or prostate cancer.
Mhm.
There is not one study that shows testosterone as the cause of prostate cancer. It is only associated or correlated. And people don't know the difference with that. And one of the urologists in my network has studied this so in depth. Like, he had guys with active prostate cancer who were on testosterone replacement. If you have testosterone levels below 250, when you go on testosterone, the prostate will grow up until 250. So then if you go beyond that, which if you're on TRT, you're going to have levels hopefully in the 900s and above, it stops growing. Well, if we take testosterone out, then the prostate shrinks.
Mhm.
We figured out that it has this saturation effect where beyond 250, it doesn't grow anymore. But the standard approach to prostate cancer is to chemically castrate men and deprive them of both estrogen and testosterone. And anyone who's known somebody who had it typically would go through that route, whether it's the medications or they get radiation, stuff like that done. So those are the more big scary things. Because of the bodybuilding world, it will be associated with acne, getting huge really quick, which does not happen. Yeah. Like, I was just talking to a new client the other day, and he's 49, and he's like, yeah, I have a few friends on it, but I always associated it with muscles. And I don't need to look like Arnold. I'm like, don't worry, you won't. I was like, the analogy I used, I was like, think of actual professional bodybuilders take 10 to 20 times what therapeutic dosage is. They still have to go to the gym every day. They still have
Yeah.
to eat a
You just gotta do
lot.
the work.
Yeah.
It's not
You
just like
still have to do
automatically.
that.
We gotta
Yeah. It doesn't transform you that quickly. But the way I talk about it seems like it's a panacea, and it's definitely not, because you still have to address all those things, but it can be game changing for men. And I have seen the transition where we've dialed in the nutrition and the lifestyle, and we've done everything right. And then when it's time to bring in testosterone, their whole demeanor changes, like the confidence in their voice, like how they show up physically. Just mostly the mental side is the biggest thing that guys comment on, because again, a lot of guys associate it with either muscles or sexual dysfunction or
Mhm.
function. And guys will go on it and there's no change in libido, or libido does get a little bit higher, but mostly they're saying, wow, I could actually think clearly again.
Yeah, and that's been my biggest issue, Allie, is like the brain fog and it's kind of unclear, right? And so yeah, I don't know. I was pulling up my test from where's that? I was at 599. Am I good? What do you think?
Well, did they do
This
testosterone
free testosterone is at 134.8.
and did they do SHBG?
I don't know.
Did
Look
they
that
do
up.
LH and FSH?
They did TSH.
No, that's thyroid.
Oh, LSH. I probably didn't unless I directed them to because it was a GP.
That's why you need more than just one
Yeah.
marker. Typically in natties, when you have a higher total testosterone level, the free testosterone is not where you want it to be. So yours isn't actually terrible, but it could be a little bit better. And that's just because of, how guys are when you're natural. You're not going to see like a super high free testosterone. And it's not something that you're necessarily going to want to like mess with herbals and stuff like that. Because typically the only thing to increase free testosterone into the most optimal range is actual testosterone.
Mhm.
But looking at LH and FSH, so if I can explain that in English, basically those are markers you want to test in a man before considering TRT, because if it is high, that is a reflection of the testicles are done producing it. And that will
Mhm.
show up in guys who are probably in their 50s and above. And anyone who's had testicular trauma, whether they've been kicked really hard there, they've had like a varicocele, which is like a very constricted vein around there. But when those numbers are low, that's more reflective of a stress response. So testosterone levels can be low due to the signal from the brain to the testicles being disrupted. And that disruption can show up as emotional stress, physical stress. Anybody who's had a TBI, like a concussion,
Mhm.
that definitely will affect it. Guys who've been in the military, exposed to explosives, PTSD, there's a lot of hormones that get disrupted. And then, therefore, lower LH and FSH will be indicative of there's some sort of stress here that is suppressing the production of testosterone. So it's important to know what type someone's dealing with. So the
Yeah.
high LH and FSH is very like you're going to see that more in the older guys. And then with the lower, that's what we usually see in younger guys. And then you do try to rectify it as naturally as you can with getting everything in order and all of that. But, it's rare that I see somebody make the changes like that you did and it stays there.
Mhm.
There's random outliers of guys who are like 75 and their test levels are like 900. Don't know where that comes from, but it's really rare. And so then guys sometimes also feel like, well, now I'm defeated, I have to give in, and they feel like they lost or something by going on testosterone. And then society tells you you're cheating, and it's like, you're
Mm.
cheating at what? Like, I want to feel better and be a better husband. Like, how is that cheating? You're not playing a professional
Yeah.
sport. So
Is there any correlation between high cortisol levels and low testosterone? I don't know. I'm sure there's been some studies, but from you and what made me think of that is kind of the high stress response, right? And thinking, hey, if I'm trying to go get it and go after it and I'm extremely stressed all the time, like, is there any indication that has an impact on T levels?
yeah, like cortisol being high will suppress testosterone, but cortisol is one of those things that like everybody wants to lower it. And it's not necessarily bad when it's high. It's just it has to be high at the right times.
Mhm.
So it'll be high in the morning. It should be high during training, but you don't want it high all day. The analogy I use for that is like if you're in the gym and say you're going for a squat PR and you're coming out of the hole and you're like shaking and your eyes are bulging and you're about to like shit your pants and you're like, oh my God, I have to make this rep. That's a very high stress environment. And if your wife walked by and was like, yo, let's go, like you can't shift gears and pop a boner and like, go into the bedroom at that time. So that's how your body is. It's like, okay, I'm under all this stress. I am not going to prioritize procreating because I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, like
So
your body is like you're about to die right now.
yeah. So that's really the impact that stress has on sexual health and function because you're not supposed to be like in fight or flight all day long.
Mm.
That's not how we are supposed to live, but because we're bombarded with screens and emails and notifications all day and stuff, like our ancestors didn't live like that. And we've tried to duplicate how our ancestors lived through diet. And clearly this doesn't work the way that it's supposed to,
Mhm.
but it is not how we're supposed to um, put our body in an environment to react that way. So that's kind of how your body will be like, cool, well, we're not going to produce this hormone because I'm stressed out. And it's very similar to guys who are obese because they're in an inflammatory environment.
Hmm. Okay. And then one last question I have to you, Ali, is really around, you said the impact of sleep, right, is huge on it. And I think, with that is we have to think about how we are setting ourselves up for success for sleep. We can't just kind of like, turn the lights out and say, cool, it's time to go to bed. So like what have you seen that works for men to try to shut that down, right? Like say we had a busy day at work and stress at the house, putting the kids down, all that kind of stuff. Like what are some good best practices to get us in the right mindset to get proper sleep?
I used to tell people like not to scroll their phone, but I do that every night. 'Cause that calms me down, believe it or
Mhm.
not. Because that's like I don't have to think about work time. Some people, like, if you're somebody that looks at posts and you get angry at the internet, like, I would not recommend just randomly doom scrolling like I was earlier today.
Yeah.
Um, but that can be a contributing factor. So a lot of guys have said they've tried taking melatonin, but they feel groggy in the morning. And
Mm.
a lot of that is because they take it like right before they go to bed.
Mm.
And the way melatonin works as a hormone, you want to take it when the sun goes down, which depending on daylight savings and where you are, it can be at like 6, 7 p.m. And that's okay because it'll start like the calming process. And then utilizing any supplements that help calm, like phosphatidylserine is one of my favorites because it just brings the resting heart rate down. It calms people down. Some people are, good with CBD. So taking that early enough to where you start to feel that like all the stress calm down before you get into bed helps a lot because a lot of the times like guys will have on their nightstand their melatonin or their sleep
Yeah,
supplements
like,
and
time to go to bed. Mhm.
yeah, and I'm like, it doesn't work that way. So that's really helped a lot just because either people are getting up a lot during the night, either to pee or they're wide awake thinking about work. Shifting food around, so carbs before bedtime can definitely help with sleep because a lot of people still think that that's bad, that like the magic fat fairy comes at 9 p.m. and is like, this is going to turn into fat. That's not true. So that can help a lot with sleep too.
Okay. Okay. Well, what's the best place for people to go find you to go learn a little bit more about what you do?
Instagram at the Ali Gilbert, ALI. I'm there. I'm the most active pretty much there.
Well, awesome. Well, guys, if you got value from this episode, which I'm sure you did, because I know I did, I want you to drop down, leave us a comment, leave us a review, and then I want you to share this with another dad as well. Allie and I talked briefly about, right, like dads we're not going to talk about stuff to each other, right? And so you ask your dad, hey, I'm good, right? I'm fine, but that may not be the case, like for real, and what's going on behind the curtain. So just the simple act of you sharing the show, like, might be what that dad needs to take the first step, take the first positive step, right? So share the show. Allie, thank you so much for coming on. That was an awesome discussion.
Thank you. It was an honor.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, hey, that is it, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to the show and supporting my mission to change the culture by creating more epic dads. If this message resonates with you and you're ready to become the husband, father, and man you're called to be, here's 2 quick things you can do to get started. Number 1 is to join the Epic Dad training app. Inside the Epic Dad app, you'll find workout programs, community, habits, accountability, courses, resources, and exclusive discounts on all Epic Dad supplements and gear. It has everything you need to start leveling up as a dad. Just hit the link in the show description and get your first 7 days free. And if you're ready to turbocharge your results and create massive change in your life, hit the link in the show description and apply to the Epic Dad Fit program. Our goal inside the FIT program is to radically change your life in just 90 days by helping you develop an unshakable foundation of discipline and habits, get you into the best shape of your life, and provide massive community and accountability to ensure you are successful. If you're ready to radically change your life as a father in just 90 days, hit the link in the show notes and apply today. Thanks for listening. Now go be epic.